Alright, welcome to the GM Roundtable.
Oh, hi. Great to be here.
So,
First,
so this event, the idea behind it is twofold. One, to talk about what it is to be a GM, what it's like to be a GM, what tips and tricks, and then also, of course, the everything you've wanted to know but you were afraid to ask section. Be it simple or complicated questions, and it won't be just me talking the entire time, but I'll go ahead and get us started. Um, as a quick question, are you going to be here the entire time, Strider?
after this, I might just see who is interested in learning a sorcerer tutorial. Otherwise, probably.
Okay. Because I'll be doing this until about 3 o'clock, in which case I'll be doing a dungeon crawl.
All right.
A what?
A dungeon crawl.
Oh.
Yeah, a fairly simple, straightforward dungeon crawl using pre-made characters. Because I was optimistic and hoped that people would show up who had never played this before. Alright, that said.
You never know.
I
I mean,
true.
there's still time.
This is true. Alright. So, being a GM, or I'm just going to say DM, because I hate Game Master. I think it's the dumbest title ever. Dungeon Master is way better.
I agree.
So I will say DM because it's just whatever.
Sorry.
All right. So, to be a DM, to me it's a blast. I love it. I really love being a DM. I keep boasting about how long I've been playing this game, and I've been a DM. How long I've been a DM? How long I've been playing?
It's for longer than you've been alive.
I've been playing longer than many of you have been alive, yes, and I've been a DM longer than some of you have been alive.
Oh.
Well, there are also decent stretches where No, I've been DMing pretty consistently now that I think about it.
Grampy OC, reminiscing about the good old days.
So that said, being a DM is a lot of fun because you have to be, on the one hand, you gotta be a storyteller. Like, you have to have a story to present to your players. If you don't have something for them to work with, then I find that the players will grow bored and become disinterested in what's going on. But it's tricky because I have a friend of mine, bless his soul, who's very, very good at creating villains. I've been talking about villains a lot. The problem is he's so good at creating villains that we are scared of him and refuse to go after him even when we're like the appropriate level to do so. Which is kind of a problem. In fact, one campaign we actually ran away from the plot. We literally ran away from the plot because we're not strong enough for this. And the truth was very much the opposite. Whoopsies. That was that led to my beautiful, beautiful bear, but that's a story for another time. So when you want to become a DM, there's a few things you have to be wanting and willing to do. One is, of course, to have a story to tell. Now, you don't necessarily need to know your story from the get-go. There's many times where I've DM'd where either I had a very vague concept of the end in mind or no concept, and sort of developed it as we went along. But you have to have a story, and you have to be willing to present the story that you've come up with. You also have to be willing to scrap it if need be, or drastically change it depending on the actions of your players. Because sometimes your players will do things that you're not expecting, like, I don't know, kill the super important NPC who is not supposed to die.
Or have a helmet of teleportation.
Yep.
Yep. Although again, And that's another part of it. As a DM, you have to be adaptive. You have to be able and willing to adapt to the unexpected. Because if you create this game that allows people the freedom to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do, you have to be willing to expect the unexpected, and then when that happens, be able to maintain your cool, whatever it may be. You know, I want to say I've seen DMs or been a DM where when the players went off the rails, they just couldn't handle it. And I remember once being part of a campaign where two of them actually. It was essentially a big cutscene. I did nothing. The entire first session, I literally did nothing. Everything just happened. And there's nothing I tried to interact with what was going on, but I was not allowed to. And then another one I remember. Anybody here a fan of Escaflowne by chance?
What?
Anybody here a fan of Escaflowne by chance?
I kind
No
of
idea
remember
what
how
that
it
is.
started.
Anyways, Escaflowne was the best way to put it, medieval mechs. It's an anime that takes place in these mechs, but it's like a medieval time period. I don't know.
Mechs that just look like suits of armor.
Basically, yeah. Except for the main evil empire, which are like super high tech because that's what evil empires do. Anyways, I actually really liked it, but that's beside the point. Someone decided to run a game where these mechs were a thing. I didn't realize at the time, but looking back on it now, I actually wasn't really a player in there. Instead, it was just a DM playing with himself, but having a player there as a catalyst to being able to do what he wanted to do. Because I remember there was a fight where I was this monk, and it was this mech versus a dragon, and the two were fighting each other, and I thought I was contributing. I wasn't.
I mean, when you have a mech and a dragon and the players don't, it's like
Yeah, but
you gotta have some fights that aren't mech and dragons.
Basically, yeah.
Exactly.
Basically, if you do that, you've got to have some secondary goal that the players are going for.
That should be happening in the background.
exactly. And this DM was not doing that. So
Or you could also have some sort of environmental weapon, like say there so happens to be a ballista here, and you can use it to attack the dragon while it's fighting the robot.
indeed, but again, this DM didn't do that. So as a DM, you have to be willing to look at your players and basically be like, all right, what can these guys do, and how can I involve them? That's actually slightly off track of what I was just talking about. Anyways, so as a DM, oh yes, that actually brings up a good point. As a DM, you should never put your own fun on equal level with the players. You should never put your own fun above the players or even below the players. Because as a DM, you're there to have fun as well. If you're not having fun, then something is going wrong. Now, to be fair, sometimes there are nights or game sessions that don't go well. I mean, that's like with any game. Sometimes it just doesn't go well. Sometimes it's amazing. But if it's consistently miserable experience, then something is wrong. And as a DM, it's important to know that balance. Because on the one hand, as a DM, like even with a player, you want what you have set forth to succeed. You want the players to enjoy the event. You want your monsters to do well. You want the fights to be challenging. You want the plots to be engaging.
Are you sure?
But
What if you don't care about the fights and say you make them quick and easy?
I mean, if that's how you want to go about it, then that's how you go about it.
Which is literally what Lily does all the time.
Maybe.
The point I'm getting at is, as a DM, never sacrifice your fun for the players. That's not to say, have fun at the expense of your players. but whatever you're doing, make sure it's something you yourself enjoy as well. And with your players, make sure your players are also having fun as well. If a player is clearly not enjoying themselves, I think it's important to talk to that player and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? And as a side note, if you're the player, I highly encourage you to be open and honest about that.
I'm usually good, so yay
Well,
me.
well, I wasn't talking to anyone specifically. I was just simply saying that as a general side note. That said, because a good GM or a good DM, in my opinion, is there to make sure everybody has fun. And now, I've gone all over the place.
Yep. Get back on script.
Now-
Jeez, what are you doing?
Now, when you're working with players, you have to remember that your players. It's important to get to know your players. It's important to get to understand them a little bit, see how they work, so you can understand what they'll be bringing to the table. If, for example, you have a player who isn't really interested in RP, then there's no point in trying to engage that player in RP situations. If there's a player who legitimately does not like combat, then I would say keep that in mind. That's not to say don't have combat period at the end, but maybe space it out or have their character not involved in combat for whatever reason. And that you make a very good point, Corvine. Or I suppose I should say Flame Lily.
About making things interesting.
I'll address that in a moment if I remember. What was I saying? I was saying something.
I'm sorry.
Lost the train of thought. Oh well, but that does bring up a good point. So the question is how do I get my players to follow my plot? I've noticed with DMs who are relatively new, what they will typically do is they will tell the players what their characters are doing. Your character walks into the room and does this, or your character walks in and notices this. I've noticed that's a thing they tend to do, and they try to have a very strong control on the situation. Perhaps, and I don't know exactly why this is, for myself, whenever I've done that, I always did because I was afraid they would not follow the plot that I'd worked so hard to create. That if I allowed them, in a sense, to their own devices, they would break something. And it would break something in a way that wouldn't be fixable. The thing is when you're creating your story and you're plotting out your events, the way you get your players to follow after those events is to create events that, as Flamely pointed out, both the characters and the players themselves are emotionally interested in following. You make events that they want to pursue. You make events that they are interested in going into. If you engage them and you understand where your players are coming from as well as their characters, then you can plan accordingly. One of the biggest surprises I had when I started DMing online was when I had two characters grab the spoils they found but didn't tell the rest of the party. That really surprised me because prior to that I hadn't really encountered that. Players had always I knew the general moral path that players would follow, but I had not anticipated that. Had I perhaps done a little more research into the characters and into the players, I might have figured that out. As it was, thankfully, those weren't moments that actually caused serious damage to anything. It was just a big surprise and taught me. I was like, oh, right, this is an aspect of the character. I need to remember that in the future. Meaning, this character and this player aren't necessarily interested in moral motivations. They're more interested in material motivations.
Or the characters who are recklessly follow moral motivation.
So, as a DM, I would highly encourage that you study your character, that you study not only your players' characters' backgrounds, but also get to know your players as well. Because
and
then learn sort of what they expect out of the campaign, what their hopes are, what they want to get, and then if you know that information, then you can create events that are compelling to those characters.
I would also say that a majority of characters probably don't have safety as one of their high. So people come in thinking it's more like a video game and don't care about their safety as much as doing
They
what
do dumb
they
things
want
because they
or
think
need
they can
to.
get away with it.
For my experience,
They do reckless things because it's what's right and they don't care if they're gonna
from
die
my
because they don't
experience of
expect it.
pretty much only playing which is like Dandy and Lucas so far. Well, first off, I know Lucas usually is already near death at most points
So that
because he's so. But like Dandy always has a safety net because he can teleport, you know.
So that actually brings up a really good point. So when you are DMing, if you find yourself DMing new players who are completely new to the experience of tabletop, that is something to keep in mind for. Because I mentioned it before previously. I think I've mentioned it in a previous panel. That you'll get people who they're used to playing video games, and when you play a video game as a player, it's an extraordinarily different experience than playing tabletop.
Yes.
All of you here can attest to that 100% how different it is.
Yeah, I can.
No,
So,
completely the same.
as a DM, you have to be aware that if a new player is coming in, there is a possibility that they may start acting as though there are no repercussions for their actions. That's not to say they will. For example, my exposure to the people on this server, generally speaking, have grasped pretty quickly how different it is from playing a video game.
Yeah.
That said, I have had it with other people who, just, they don't necessarily go around setting orphanages on fire, but I just don't think they fully grasp the fact that their actions have weight and gravity beyond just themselves.
Yeah.
So that is also something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I do feel like, again, with Lucas, he really didn't have anyone else that really mattered to him in the beginning,
Well,
as a character. But
that may be so, but this at least this time is more for the discussion of things on a GM and DM side of things.
yeah.
Strider, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to add to all this?
Hi, my name's Local Hero, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
This has been witnessed.
Honestly, I've only been like DMing for a little while now. Before this, I've tried at least 3 times, but I've never had a
share your
party release day together.
It's been so many years since I've been a brand new DM. I've basically forgotten what it's like. So why don't you talk a little bit what it's like to be a brand new DM?
Yeah.
What are the
I hate everyone and everything.
Well, talk about some of the challenges you faced, some things you learned, some things you weren't expecting. Some of the
I learned that I hate humanity.
as DMs do.
I have learned that you can plan, and then there will always be one. I will refrain from using bad words.
Yes.
About that one person who will be like, well, actually, the rules say you can't do that. Which also happens to be everyone in my party.
Yes, I can confirm.
It was just that one time, and that other
No,
time,
it's all
and that other
time.
time.
That's all times.
And the time after that.
Yes.
Hey,
I've
we
learned
don't talk about the
that
time.
I've learned that no matter what I do, if I try to make something hard and difficult, Lily will just kill them dead. To the point where I have to start making violent psychopathic murderers who can do 44 damage
And-
before rolling any dice.
And you give him armor AC, which does nothing, which
That does
hurts everyone
nothing.
except for Lily, basically.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love fighting armor AC as a
So
melee
now I
character.
guess I'm gonna have to make you fight nothing but banshees from now on.
Oh no!
Oh, so
Wait.
what you're saying is that you're also messing with the entire party except me again.
So
Yeah.
then comes the question, as much as we DMs like to complain,
But honestly, I'm for real. I've had so fun.
Yeah.
Like, I literally started this campaign out of I want to make a Monster Hunter campaign.
And that lasted for like 3 seconds.
That lasted for about 3 sessions, and then I started having ideas.
Yeah, because that was
And
the
those
point of, like,
ideas spawned in it just a whole mess of a story that nobody can follow. No, I can't even follow it.
Because yeah, the point, it was like the first rank was basically Monster Hunter-esque, right?
Yeah.
And then
It's
after
literally
that,
like
there was like no story at all.
it's like, well, gotta save the world.
yep, gotta save the world now. Oh, look here's the cult. Here's more consummate. Oh, here are the observers.
Like the
here's
only
the
thing in the first rank that I think we actually had any story at all was the follower of Abaddon showing up or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Kabada?
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually ever supposed to show up until way later.
Yep.
But I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna pull the trigger on everything.
Yep.
that's another skill you learn, is how to.
But I mean, honestly, if there's one thing I've been able to do, that I love doing is, because here's the thing, and I think everyone already is caught on to it, but nothing in my campaign is planned. Absolutely nothing. Not a single thing.
Yeah. I mean, you have said that you've planned quite a bit far in the future.
I literally plan villains, I plan certain events, and I plan the final boss.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Everything else is literally just off the top of my head.
Yes.
That's about what happens to me.
And I'm very happy for that, because that spawned the moon deer.
Well, yeah, things have
That's
been going fairly well.
Or at least your interpretation of the moon deer, which is now the
My
true.
interpretation of the Moon Dare, which is now the Moon
It's
Dare.
canon. It's canon.
So, as a fun
It's canon.
side note, the current campaign that I'm running is actually the most structured I think I've ever run a campaign. Typically speaking, when I would run campaigns previously, I would have certain vague plot points in mind. Then everything between point A and point B was made up. I would just invent it all off the seat of my pants, including many of the monster fights. I'd just be like, alright, give me a second. I'd pop up the monster book, grab a couple monsters, and throw it at them. But I was also a lot more comfortable with the system at the time, and could more easily gauge what would result in the difficulty fight I wanted.
Well, now you've got like branching paths that the players can take and all that stuff.
I mean, there's pretty much only two ways to handle this sort of campaign. And that is either to overplan or to underplan.
Yeah.
And I want the City of Rain to feel relatively consistent, so I overplan. But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
So
I would like to say that I'm also having fun with like both of your campaigns. Speaking from someone who's playing them,
So
you
yeah,
know?
so if you wish to become a DM, those are things to keep in mind. But if it's something you like to do, it's well worth it all. It's absolutely well worth all the headache, the frustration, if you do a lot of planning, the late nights. It's absolutely worth it all.
Yeah.
And so I want to go ahead and change this a little bit and open it up to Q&A. Any questions you guys have always wondered about.
I am back.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
So
And I
you arrived just in time for the QA session. So,
Colorado won.
oh hey, very nice.
Yeah.
The
No,
Q&A
Yeah.
session.
Him and Danny can fight later.
Yes.
Yeah. EO got me down to 13 HP out of 60.
Wow. But
wow.
let's get back on
Wow.
topic. If no other reason because I'm recording this and do plan on using these recordings for later use.
Oh,
Okay.
Everyone stay professional.
Well, you don't have to be so
This is,
professional.
this
I already-
is numbers business.
I've
We should
already
script
messed
right.
up. Worry.
Well, I'm here, so I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Oh
Oh
no.
dear.
Yeah, he's
I mean-
talking about
Oh no.
he's talking about trying to convert Lotus into a hippie on the other channel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and in the Carnival channel, we started off playing games and ended up just using the bard to play Ocean Man.
Ocean Man.
So, like I said, so now it's Q&A. Feel free to ask me or Strider any questions you've always had about being a DM, what it means to be a DM, any advice you're looking for, so on and so forth.
How often can you take it?
Okay, I have a question for you, OC.
Yeah, what's up?
Have you purposely fudged, like, made a roll worse than what you actually rolled?
Yes.
Because you think it would be a better result, like, better story thing?
I have fudged several rolls, and the main reason I do that is there's two main reasons I do it. Either one is pity or story. Typically what will happen, and that's why I roll my dice in secret, so that players don't know when I'm fudging things.
No, I remember you specifically telling me
Roll behind the
that when you
screen.
made one of your bad rolls better just to get at me.
Yes, that was when I stung you with the scorpion and accidentally one-shot you.
Good thing.
Down me in one shot.
Yeah. The hit was intentional,
Cody-
the damage was not.
Don't worry, OC makes it a habit to one-shot his tanks.
Oh,
Alright, you.
OC, I have a question.
Yes?
Can I re-roll fudged rolls?
Well, I suppose, technically speaking, you wouldn't know what the original result was. You don't know what the original result was, so...
Well, if I know it's a crit, then it's like... I was like, oh, I'm gonna roll that.
I mean, generally speaking, I don't fudge into crits. If I fudge into either hits or misses.
Okay.
And the main reason I'll do it, like I said, is either A, because I want the whatever to happen to be a little more dramatic. To make it a little more interesting and
Okay.
a little more intense.
So, I have a question then.
Hold on, one quick. I'm almost
I was
finished.
gonna say.
The second reason is if I've noticed that things have been going really bad against the players. It's not super often I'll do it, but I will occasionally fudge rolls just to make things a little bit better on the players, because I've been in that position where the dice have just gone completely cold, and to me, I don't enjoy that either as a player or as a DM. But also, as a DM, I'm very pro player as a DM. Perhaps a little too pro player, but just as
Yeah, a little bit.
as the DM.
No, because the heroes are supposed to win.
But
Can't be too pro for there.
anyways, so you had a question? Oh,
So my question is
real quick.
did you fudge the rolls on the first boss fight?
I don't think so, actually.
Well, he wouldn't need to.
No, I don't. I don't believe I fudged any rolls on that first boss fight.
But you were gonna say something?
Did I answer your question? Did I answer your question, Colorado? Oh, he's muted.
He muted himself, so.
I will assume yes, because I'm optimistic like that.
What?
I see. I was just asking if I answered your question satisfactorily.
Oh yeah, you did.
Sufficiently.
But to be fair, that one roll you fudged into a hit to get me that one time with the scorpion, I don't blame you for that because I was really cocky.
I think there may have also been a bit of humility in that fudge, but I don't, or a little bit of humble pie in that fudge, but I legitimately don't remember if that was one of my motivations or not. It
Yeah.
probably was.
Like I kept saying, look at all this non-damage I took.
That's called karma.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
instant, and he gets that, and it downs one hit.
The damage was karma. The hit was the DM. But anyways, so does anybody have any next question?
I don't know. I think that might be enough.
Well,
dear.
Oh no, what was
much-
that?
How much preparing do you typically do, OC?
And how far in advance?
When I was preparing for this quest, it was a lot of the work was very front loaded. I spent pretty close before the first session happened. I spent pretty close to 3 continuous days getting the groundwork laid and everything figured out. And even then, I didn't technically give myself enough time to do it. That said, for regular sessions, I typically plan them the day before, and it usually takes me, depending on what I have planned, it can usually take me between 5 to 8 hours, depending. Like, for example, if I know the next session where the events are unfolding, like when you guys were in the middle of the dungeon crawl, I didn't have to do any planning. Once you guys got in the dungeon, I didn't have to worry about it because everything was already planned ahead in advance. It was just a matter of getting through that. But when I was doing Act 1 of Fate of Phonum, I would usually plan about, I'd say, 4 to 5 hours the day before, or sometimes on Thursday. So I would say if I was smart, I'd give myself between 5 and 10 hours to prepare. I also there's a couple reasons it takes that time. One is I rely a lot on my prior knowledge of being a DM to get me through a lot of things, but also I'm working with a lot of mechanics I'm not overly familiar with, so sometimes that'll slow me down. So if that seems like a long time, that's because I have to do a lot of paperwork and getting things written out. And if it seems like a really short time, that's because I'm depending on my experience to get me through. As a fun note, I typically will copy monster blocks directly onto like a map I make or into the notes I make, so I don't actually have to open the monster manual and go to that page. It's really tedious and adds a chunk of time, but I find it to be a major time saver when it comes to session time.
See.
So is this Q&A just about, DM questions or like just general stuff?
I mean, these are questions like either or. Like if you guys are curious about a certain aspect of of DMing, if you guys are curious about how we DM, if you're curious about.
Oh, because I have a question. Like you as a player.
All right. What is it?
This is kind of like just me being curious. What's your personal favorite class to play?
You should have asked Race.
Well, let's do both.
Going to be right back.
Okay, dwarf. Now that said,
Dwarf.
If you say
Simple
human,
as that,
I'm gonna
dwarf.
kill you.
ah,
A human.
it's a really
I actually don't like playing humans all that much, to be honest, because fantasy world. I don't want. Well,
Playing what?
I already am.
Oh,
one.
human.
So, OC, are you boring? I mean, human?
dwarf.
I'm more human after all.
I almost like dwarf, and whenever I pick my classes,
No.
I
So you like short
you
human?
know I think my favorite class is probably paladin. I think that's my favorite.
So that's why you use.
And I
So
like
that's why you what?
Paladins are still the worst.
well the reason I like paladins is they get a little bit of everything. Like their self-sustainment is incredible, and I really like that.
So it's funny you should talk about this. Me and Pinky had a small argument earlier.
Oh dear.
Like
About
about
Paladins being trash?
about Cavaliers being
worse
trash
paladins.
yeah,
That's right.
Cavaliers being trash and Paladins can do most of what they do better. But yeah. I mean, he's right in a lot of ways. You know, Paladins get a mount, Paladins get a lot of support.
Paladins get a
tanky.
code.
Well,
Not in fifth.
Cavaliers get a code too.
Yeah, they do actually.
So you can't use it.
The codes are right there. They're archetypes.
Oh, well,
The code of vengeance, the code of life.
You're
whatever.
referring to the tenants.
Oh,
They're codes. They have specific tenets in them.
yeah, Cavalier does have some really great abilities, but Paladin has really great spells. You know.
They try to be vague with them, but they actually do have tenets.
I mean, I find paladins, as far as like their progression is concerned, to be a little dull, a little boring. I just really like their versatility.
What's your least favorite?
Wait, what's dull about them?
I mean, generally speaking, their level progression is relatively straightforward and predictable.
That's true. Yeah.
Which is a bit of a drawback, but I just, like I said, they're so versatile, and I love the type of versatility they bring. Because I love tanking. Tanking is my favorite thing. I love being a tank. And
I'm honestly loving tanking as well. You know, especially considering my first character wasn't one, and you know, it's my first character wasn't a tank, so it's like I like tanks now.
That said, paladins make amazing tanks, and plus, with their ability to cast spells, it gives them a level of versatility that, it just opens up a whole new world.
Yeah,
but
and he just says that Cavaliers don't really have any sustain like they do. You know, they're just as tanky but without healing. You know, they have the same base. Oh, and they don't have resistances or AC or all that. Like Paladins they do have the banner. They have the banner. That's what they have. They can use their banner and all that. For Cavaliers do, which is sort of like the aura that Paladins have.
Actually,
it's like
thinking about it, Corvine.
Yeah.
Would you mind speaking briefly about your experiences as a DM?
Yes.
Fair enough. What actually brings up an interesting point. Also, you're one of the few people who actually answered that question in the correct sense.
What?
Which question?
Would you say would you mind?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I answered that the correct way. Yeah.
As a DM, you have to be willing to really put yourself out there, and you have to be willing to be assertive, and you have to be willing to put your foot down. And you have to be willing to. It's not easy. It's kind of hard to do that, because there are many times when players will approach you, usually independent of each other, and they will ask you, "Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this?" And then someone will express dissatisfaction. I don't like that you did this. I don't like that you did that. And as a DM, you have to know, where the line in the sand is. And you have to be willing to stand by that, even if it makes people sometimes unhappy. Because if you compromise on everything, you end up with. Well, first off, I find if you compromise on everything, you lose the respect of your players.
Yeah.
It sort of become this wishy-washy, easy pushover thing, and then the players like, well, I just do whatever I want. And then, that said, if you draw the line in the sand too hard, and you refuse to move, then your players are all of a sudden like, oh great, now we have this kind of guy we gotta deal with. Or this kind of guy we gotta deal with. But, that said, as difficult as it is, I find that, putting your cards on the table on both sides and really talking about it usually ends pretty well. As a DM, though, sometimes it's a little hard because you don't want to spoil things.
Who's blowing into the microphone? It's driving me crazy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this, but okay.
It appears there's a bit of feedback.
Don't worry.
That said, so if you're not, I guess the best way to put this is, DMing isn't easy. It's hard work, and sometimes it's emotionally draining to do. So you have to be prepared to deal with that. And as a DM, one of the best ways I find to deal with that is, find someone you can talk to sort of express your frustrations with. To express, find basically a good ways of venting to deal with that. Because as a dungeon master, you're not only the rules enforcer, you're also a diplomat. You are, hopefully, you're not a babysitter. A storyteller.
You're always a babysitter.
Hopefully, you're not. I'm not going to lie; it happens sometimes. And
Didn't you know that's what Strider does?
And sometimes you have to do. Sometimes you have to do things you don't really necessarily want to. I'll share a small story. I've shared it before. I was DMing a campaign that was very bizarre. I decided to send my players back to the beginning of time. Anyways, but that's
beginning of time.
They watched the
They were fighting dinosaurs.
They watched the birth of Bahamut, the god of dragons.
It's a boy.
That's pretty far back.
Boy.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
Like, we should name him Behemoth. No, you don't want that name. It sucks.
Yeah, in fact, because of them, he was born good. I think, like due to their influence, he was a good god.
Isn't he actually a good god?
Yeah, he is. He's the. But I'm saying, but I made it so that they were the reason he was a good god. I think
they altered the canon to keep it the same canon.
Pretty much. Well, it turns out that the great twist is the timeline they came from was actually a false timeline, anyways. So they themselves were never supposed to exist. So they had to make the choice of either going with the actual timeline that was supposed to exist, thus erasing themselves from existence, or keeping an altered timeline so that they continue to be. But that's beside the point.
Isn't the answer obvious?
Yeah.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
I would love to say, well, that's the problem, is it did break. That's why they went back.
Well, then...
Anyways. That's all beside the point.
Okay.
And I would love to say they will be remembered for their sacrifice, but they won't be. Because they never existed. Anyways. That said... So I had a player. And this player was... So there were two players I was having, and both players were very interested in breaking the game in their favor. One of them I allowed to do it. The other one I did not.
So they were rules hagglers.
The difference being was their attitude and the attitude they took towards it. The one of them said, I'm aware that what I'm doing is broken and too powerful. I'm aware that this is too strong. If you would like me to nerf it, I am more than happy to do so. let me know, and I will be willing to do so. And I knew he was good for his word. And so as a result, I let him have it. Admittedly speaking, in retrospect, I should have nerfed him a little bit because another character had a really hard time keeping up with the damage output. And anyways, the other player, however,
Striders in the room.
the other player,
Hey, I don't break the game.
well,
No, I mean, as a DM, you're in the room.
the other player, however, his problem was he wanted to break the rules in ways that I was not okay with. If I gave him an inch, he went a mile. And now, admittedly, I did get my emotions get the better of me. Because what happened at one point is one of the main villains showed up to the party, right? And the idea was, villain fights the party, then the villain leaves, right? I don't remember if he was supposed to curb stomp. No, I think they were supposed to beat him off, and then he left, right? And to return at another time.
Yes, and then instead, he got fed like a barn shrunk down to a pill,
No,
and then it grew and
not quite.
blew him up.
No, this time what he did is he flew away, right? Now my other players recognized. Oh, okay, we recognize what this is, and they kind of let him go without much of a fuss, right?
Dispel magic.
This player decided to shoot an arrow at him. Now, out of fairness, that's fine.
Did he strike him in the knee?
The problem is that he turned towards me and with a smug smile on his face, as if "I got you, DM. I'm smarter than you" kind of attitude, said I shoot him with an arrow. So what I ended up doing is I had the villain come down, lob his head off, then fly away. No dice rolls were involved. It just happened.
Oh, this is you told the story before.
I have.
You went overboard.
That is why I share this story.
It's like that scene from Final Fantasy VII.
You see, there were several things here. One, I overreacted. I allowed my emotions to get to my head, and I basically lashed out at that player because I did not like the way they were I did not like the way they were treating me, and I did not like the way they were treating the other players. This was also the sort of player, when he would roll a diplomacy roll against other players, he would expect, almost demand them to do what he wanted them to do because he rolled high.
Nope, sorry, sir, that's an intimidation check. Oh,
Hello, I am here now.
Hello.
So as
Hello.
a result, on the one hand, I think the right thing to do would have been to kill his character or ask him to just leave the campaign altogether, because he was an actual detriment to the fun of the group as a whole, both to myself and to the other players. Should I have killed him on screen? I mean, my other players certainly didn't complain. In fact, I think they were really happy that I did that.
What is this brilliant story that I'm missing?
The fact that if you were in this campaign when you were in high school, you would have been destroyed.
It's everything's been recorded, so
I'll watch it later.
He got real petty.
Anyway.
So it was somebody being me in high school, and they got punished for it.
Well, here's the thing, though, is he was actually a bad player. He was actually, as I mentioned earlier, he was detrimental to the fun of everybody. He was getting in the way of people having fun, and he was doing everything kind of at the expense of other people. Whether he was intentionally at their expense or not, it's debatable.
He was basically being that guy.
Yeah, he was basically being a jerk. So, I don't think that I reacted properly by murdering his character.
Without rules.
I think the right thing to do would have been to ignore it, and then to ask him, basically say, talk to him afterwards and be like, I no longer want you in my campaign.
Just be like, it's not working out.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not me, it's you. Especially you.
So
It's not you, it's me. Oh wait, no, it's not me. It's definitely you.
It's definitely you.
They call you words behind your back. Sometimes
So-
sentences.
I say that because as a DM, sometimes you have to make the tough call, and basically kick people. And sometimes you have to kick people out. Sometimes you have to be like, no, you are not playing with others. You refuse to change, because this is a team game. This is a team game. We're working together. Like, sure, squabbles and arguments come up, but when someone refuses to acclimate to the nature of it, and they're only interested in themselves, not just as a PC, but as a player, to me, that's not cool. Now,
So, what happened to this guy afterwards?
He was
Down the
left
game, you
there.
die for real.
I think I killed.
Oh, so he cut his head off, no rules.
He was banished to the Shadow Realm.
I think I killed
Oh,
his
yes.
character. Then I allowed him to make a new character under very strict guidelines. He joined, I think, for a couple of sessions, and then ended up
Decided being nice is
Okay.
terrible.
So
Dude,
the only thing I got from this is I should definitely make Scorch.
Yeah.
And then play him exactly the same.
So,
Wait,
So,
what? Afterwards,
so-
what?
So with
What actually
Corvine's
happened?
campaign, all the players were the problem, not the DM. Bad players, kick everybody out. Well, no
Yep.
players, no campaign.
Starting with you.
Look.
Wait, what actually happened to the
If
guy?
if I ever see someone act like that, I don't
guys.
even care if I'm the DM. I'll hop into the other voice channel on here and be like, "As a god, I kill you."
No, don't say as a god. Say as Manwich. I kill you.
As Manwich, as the
As-
jelly god Manwich.
Is there a
Slime
difference
witch.
between God and Manwich?
Yes.
Guys, he wasn't done with his story. What happened?
Lucy, are you not done with your story?
It's like, what do you say? Brock's interrupted it, and it's like everyone was like,
well, basically, I think, ultimately speaking, he just ended up leaving after a couple of sessions. I can't remember if I asked him to leave, if the other players asked him to leave. I think we asked him to leave, is what we ended up doing. And he just sort of quietly accepted and stopped coming.
I remember this story.
Yes, it's a story I will continue to tell because, to me, it's a very important story for DMs to hear. Because
Oh.
there's a much
Okay,
to
let's
learn
see.
from it.
Okay, OC, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
No, this one is it's a real simple question. How do you feel knowing that the little thing you started on this server became to be such a big thing it is now? We have this giant festival.
well, giant festival is like, over exaggerated a little bit.
No.
It's not
lies.
really. We have more
It's big.
people on than almost ever.
So
It's pretty big.
that question is technically off topic.
No, this
Oh,
is
what?
we're interviewing you now.
Yeah,
it
it
is
is.
tabletop Q&A. Yeah, it is a
No,
question about.
it's GM Q&A.
Okay,
Okay.
what section are we on? What can I join in?
GM Q&A.
Yes, DM
As a
Q&A.
game,
It's still GM Q&A, Brox.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes,
Okay,
so-
GM Q&A.
Yeah,
I was looking at it wrong. My bad.
so as a game master,
Oops.
how do you like people putting like massive amounts of backstory and plans into their characters? Like how I've been doing it.
Well, there is the diplomatic answer, and there's the blunt. There's the diplomatic answer and the blunt answer.
The
Do
blunt.
the blunt answer first.
Yeah,
The
do the
blunt-
blunt answer first.
The blunt
and
answer is I don't like
try to recoil.
I don't like reading other people's writing, so I hate it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember this.
That is a personal thing. That is not actually.
Explain.
No,
You must-
don't explain. That's your
You
answer.
started this fire.
You don't-
It's terrible.
You don't
If you
don't
give more
get
than
to sit-
5
you don't
words
get
for
to
your
be a
backstory, you're a
Let
trouble.
me-
He only accepts
Yeah,
his fan.
guys,
As
let
a
him
DM,
finish.
you should accept
Let-
everyone's backstory, no
let
matter
me
how
finish.
awful it is.
Because
Ryder!
there's more to the story. And I'm not justifying or backtracking what I said. I stand by what I said. I hate reading backstories just because I hate reading other people's writing. That said, when it
It's
comes
because
to
people don't know what you're writing.
as a DM, well, no, it's because I'm an egotistical freak and I think no one writes as good as I do. But that's beside the point. The thing is when you're writing a backstory, my personal preference is when players write their backstories in a more didactic way. Less as an actual story and more of a, this is what my character's been doing, this is where they are, this is what's going on, versus
It's called a backstory.
Yes, and this is my own personal preference. I mentioned it before, or I mentioned in a previous panel, but I'll mention it here. As a DM, with backstories, what I'm looking for is I want to know, why is this character an adventurer? Where did they come from? What were they doing prior to this? Why are they on this adventure? How do they get their class? How does their race and class mix if it's important? That sort of thing. And then what I want to know is, what is their motivations? What's important to them? Who is important to them? Why are they important to them? Is there something...
haven't you heard of show don't tell?
That's what he expects you to do in your backstory.
No, he expects the opposite. He wants you to tell, not show.
Again, my personal preference is, again, rather didactic and straightforward. I'm lazy and I want to do as little reading as possible. I'm lazy and I want to do as little reading as possible.
Which is why you base everything off the Book of Lore.
With as much reading as possible.
The reason I actually did that, and this is actually applicable, is because, what was it? Someone mentioned earlier about, I think someone mentioned something about rules consistency. So, the reason I did that is because I assumed that I would get some players who really, really wanted consistency with Phonum.
You assumed wrong.
I did not.
I mean, that's a good thing.
No.
I did
Consistency
not
is good.
Consistency is very good.
This is why I delved in and worked really hard, because I advertised my campaign as being set in the world of the game. That was what I advertised. So to make sure that my world was consistent with that advertisement, I read those books of lore over and over again, trying to find as many details as I could find so as to make my world congruent. That said, as you guys noticed, I missed some things. And you know what? It is what it is. And I made some mistakes. That's fine. And I do my best to
rectify them?
Smooth them over.
Yeah.
But, though speaking of which, consistency is really good, which is why, changing the world to fit with the other world as more information comes out is a bad thing, because it makes it less consistent.
The thing... But that is why I did that. Because I felt, as a DM, I feel one of the most important... Well, okay. Depending on your DM's style, I feel that consistency is an important thing.
Consistency.
Whether it's consistency in rules, consistency in world, or whatever have you. Now, if your consistency is inconsistency, that's fine. It's just I just feel that whatever you do, make sure you're consistent with it. So that your players understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and things don't change in ways that are too jarring and unacceptable. And that said, I don't care.
Inconsistent, and your character's a compulsive liar.
Consistency is more important in a serious campaign than a comedic one.
And I don't care about your opinions about those unicorns, Corvine. About your opinions about those unicorns, Corvine. That's probably going to be canon anyways.
What opinions?
But anyways.
Can you be more specific?
Yes, about how you feel that I shouldn't change the fact that the unicorns have been hiding this entire time, but instead stick with what I've been going with, which is that rather than being a myth that's 1,000 years old, they're just incredibly uncommon. Oh, and the top of that there is not a series of religions. In fact, the only real religion is the light that's currently wrapped up in the unicorn.
Yes.
And
I was
mother and honored father.
You know, there's a question I actually had about Fate of Phonum lore that I've been having for a long time, but this is not the time to ask, even though it's a very simple yes or no.
Well, I will allow it, and then I'm going to end the panel.
Okay, is Hornspeak still a derogatory term for Luxor Radio?
unicorns.
Don't say
I
that
would
word.
assume that that's like calling. It's pretty much like I would assume that that's like the equivalent of saying if you see someone speaking Japanese and you're like, "What does this movie speak?"
Well,
Good night, everybody.
It's a bonehead.
How
I mean,
dare?
What's with all this deep talk?
I will say that yes, it's just nowhere near as prevalent as it was prior to my realizing that the unicorns are mythical creatures, even in Votum.
So it's a derogatory term, like among other unicorns.
It's a derogatory
like how?
term. It's a derogatory term used by those who have been fortunate enough to see a unicorn and have heard Lex Orato, but don't understand or appreciate the significance thereof.
Wait, how's it pronounced?
But what about all the unicorns in the previous act?
How's it pronounced? I actually want to hear that again.
I say Lex Orato, or Lex or whatever have you. I don't actually know the technical right way of saying it because I don't speak Latin, but...
Alright, who speaks Latin here?
Oh.
Who took Latin as one of their starting languages?
Well,
I
can't.
Man,
Huh?
Catholic, don't you speak Latin?
Of course not.
Oh my God!
Holy
Wow.
Of course
Yeah,
not.
that's how you. And all right. Cut the recording. Cut the recording right there.
So anyway,
End the stream.
so
Actually,
but what about all the fact that nobody reacted to all the unicorns in the first act?
Look, I'm just bad at reactions, okay? That's just me that's just a flaw with the DM. I'm just like, oh yeah, people should be reacting to things. Whoopsies!
No, like-
Look, here's all you need to know about mine and OC's DM style.
Ophelia's normal.
OC reads the book of lore and tries to expand upon it. I rev up my chainsaw and get my shotgun, and I pose to the camera and I go, groovy, before tearing it to shreds. And I'm just taking the pieces I like.
Yes. And then you feed those pieces to Michael Bay.
Yeah, to Michael Bay.
That said, I'm gonna go ahead and end the panel and stop the recording. Thank you, Brox, for elevating the rating of it in a single moment.
I am going to. Well, I'm pretty much not going to do anything until the VR adventure, because